Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It is live full-time reaction to Hearts 0, Celtic 3. Celtic are in the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup. Once again, I've got Kenny with me to go over the game. Kenny, I thought from start to finish that was a really, really good performance. I thought it really underlined our strength just now. I thought the start to the game was excellent. In the first half, we just absolutely dominated and we were just brilliant all round.
It's just such a powerful performance. We're like a juggernaut at the moment that just can't be stopped. And the real class team, the real quality sides that leave a mark in history, they peak at the right time. They peak when they're under pressure. And he clearly sacrificed a bit of performance midweek because he was thinking about today. And when you listen to him during the week in the media, he spoke with such purpose and he was so meaningful about today. I just sensed that they would be so well drilled that they would come out the traps, because what's the risk in somewhere like Tynecastle? It's a powder keg environment, right? It can be unnerving for players. Certainly if they get the crowd getting top of you, one way to kill that is just snuff them, hit them early, give them Ange ball from the off, and that's exactly what we did. Hatate nearly scores in 30 seconds. It takes a world-class save to keep him out. And then 90 seconds later, we've got a brilliant sweeping move, Jota, brilliant finish from Moy, and they're immediately on the back foot. The powder keg environment drops off a cliff and you can control the game. So they've played that perfectly, and I think Postecoglou has played it perfectly by resting some key players during the week to peak when it matters, because that's probably the biggest hurdle we've got. Well, one of the biggest hurdles we've got between now and the end of the season on the way to a treble. And that first 20 minutes, bringing back those two starting fullbacks made such an enormous difference. I mean, they just know positionally how to hold the line, how to support in an infield position that gave us so much structure. Moy, Hatate, McGregor, they just don't give the ball away in tight conditions, particularly Moy. If Moy takes the ball when he's back to goal, he senses that he's under pressure. His first touch will buy him space. He can equally sense that if he's got somewhere to move, he'll take it in the half turn and take it forward. His brain he's not getting any pace, but his brain just compensates for that and more. And their footwork with the fullbacks pressing high, Hearts couldn't get out their own last third for the first 20 minutes. Now, we know long enough that can't last for 90. We know that. But we got the goal. And we were right on Joe, weren't we? 25 minutes in. Yeah. I mean, that was a superb save. People have become a bit, including me, a little bit frustrated with Joe Hart's performances, but because of his footwork, right? He's given away some goals that we shouldn't have. But at a base level as a goalkeeper, he's 36 next month. There's nothing wrong with his performances. His pure goalkeeping ability is still there. And I thought that was brilliant the way he went down. I mean, he was down so sharp that the ball was actually behind him. Take it back to the head and then show that passion when he got up. It just shows you that the class is still there in Hart. We should have had a penalty in 35 minutes. We might talk about that. It's just unreal, the amount of VAR stuff that's going against us. But the finish in 45 minutes is sublime. I mean, Kyogo at the moment, people are just terrified of him. I lost a wee bit of patience with Kyogo. Kyogo thought he was a wee bit more on the periphery all through that time, Paul, and you were right, because he's undroppable at the moment. He is. He's the hottest striker we've had. You know, I see some online debates: is he better than Dembele and Edouard? They're right discussions to have, because he's at that level. And then the second half, I mean, I'd written in my notes here that it was a professional performance. When I look back, just a sort of professional scene out the game. When I look back on it, it probably wasn't. Jota's cleaned through in 55 minutes. Hatate's got a stunning volley that was taken off the line in 78 minutes. Yeah. CCV scores, and then there was a little bit of concern there, because at the start of that second half, well, you're playing Kobayashi, difficult environment for him to come into, and CCV get booked early. So when your two centre-halves are a bit brittle like that, it's not the easiest place. It will all be the time was a goal, and all of a sudden it's a live contest again. But I thought all in all they handled it superbly, and yeah, I'm just so pleased with the direction of the team at the moment. It feels special.
Aye, absolutely, I agree. And I thought the start to the game could not have been any better. You've sort of covered it there, but when you go to Tynecastle, and I think even if you contrast it to our last visit there, you can tend to have shaky starts at Tynecastle, because their crowd is behind them. They're going to try and come at you early doors, whether it be with long balls or physicality. But they were on the back foot from the first second today. I I just thought we looked like a coiled spring. We were just ready to go, and we really pinned them back. I thought the first goal, Jota does excellent. Vols tries to step in and nick it, and it's just a wee feint for Jota to get him away, and he does really well to lift his head and pick out Moy. But that's not an easy finish for Aaron Moy. I know it looks easy because all he has to do is guide it, but the ball is bouncing just a wee bit. It's coming at pace. But the finish is perfect, and it could not have got us off to a better start.
And we were just playing so high in that first 20 minutes. The only people that weren't putting them under pressure were our two centre-backs. Our other 8 outfielders were all over them in their own last third. Mm-hmm. And it's not often you see sides play with that level of aggression and that level of confidence, because to do that, if we do get broken down, if Aaron Moy isn't superb on the ball, if Callum McGregor's not immaculate with his feet, they can break away, but we've got the confidence to know that won't happen. Hatate equally is technically gifted to hold the ball in the middle of the park. And I really did think you saw a huge difference with our starting fullbacks in that system early on, and that helped us really hem them in. Moy's footwork is just brilliant. It was an excellent goal. I thought Jota was really good today. I mean, Jota, he was afforded a bit more space than normal because, Hearts aren't going to sit and try and double mark him and just completely sit in. And I thought his class showed, particularly for that first goal, albeit really early on. He's hit that in with pace with Moy, and Moy's just got one chance to sweep that home. But that's the quality he's got in his feet. His footwork is absolutely superb, and that's what buys him the time. But it also buys him goals.
Yeah, I think Jota was brilliant, particularly without the ball today. You've touched on our aggression in terms of pressing Hearts in the first half. I thought Jota was brilliant. He won it back on numerous occasions. Alistair Johnston as well in that first half. We just suffocated Hearts. They literally could not get out their own third for the opening 20 minutes. I want to talk, I suppose, about that penalty shout because it was just kind of brushed aside. And obviously, we absolutely cruised it today, and it doesn't matter. But I was surprised that there wasn't more made of it, because Johnson, I assume it's Alistair Johnston one you're talking about, where he crosses it. Yeah. He gets inside the box and he crosses it, and Halliday's there to clatter him. Michael Stewart seemed to think that there was no material impact on Johnson, apart from the fact he got wiped out after he'd crossed the ball.
I mean, so if there's no material impact on someone, you can just attack them. I mean, what a ludicrous... I actually think Michael Stewart's one of the most sensible pundits. But it's just an absolutely ludicrous assessment of why it's not a penalty. How on earth does he know that the ball wouldn't have went in more accurately had they not been clattered? They would never scored from it, right? I mean, so if he's wiped out, I mean, I don't really know what... It was so clear-cut. I don't really know if there's much value in us trying to discuss whether it should have been a penalty or not. It was so obvious, but it just seems, and this will just sound like paranoia, but it just seems like every little thing goes against us. Andy Halliday should have been booked so clearly.
The one who threw the back, it was Johnson again, wasn't it?
I mean, it
threw the back.
Yeah. Jota's threw at an angle on the right hand, and he's waved for offside. One of the rare times somebody waves for an offside now. They usually just wait for VAR to handle it. Mm-hmm. Wave for offside. He's well on. Joe Hart's head. The striker after Joe Hart's save was entitled to go for the ball, but he's missed the ball and he's endangered Joe Hart's skull. I mean, that's just a foul. It's so simple. We don't get it. And then the most glaring one of all was that Alistair Johnson. These little things matter now. We're sat here on a 3-0 defeat, and you and I can probably feel a bit jovial about the fact that things are going against us. These things can matter. We're going for a treble here. I remember being at Hampden, and we were deprived of treble after Lee Griffiths' header was handballed off the line. These things matter. The game was still alive when Alistair Johnson get hauled down in the box there, and we've been done. So I'm getting increasingly frustrated by it, and it's not based on bias, it's based on fact. When we come on and talk about these things, it's backed up by fact. It's not backed up by, just trying to be sensationalist about things. So anyway, there's probably no point in us getting more of that off our chest, but it was another day where I think the refs weren't particularly favourable to us, but they couldn't. No one was stopping us today, simply not the referees.
No, certainly not. It looks like nobody can stop us right now. This is a live format, by the way. Lots of you watching. Some comments from South Australia, Central Coast, someone for Saudi Arabia as well. Brilliant. Thanks for tuning in. Kenny, we did get the second goal right on half-time, and if you think the first goal is the perfect time to score, 2 or 3 minutes in, then the next best time to score is right on half time, because Hearts are wanting to go in at 1-0, try and regroup, come out at us. But again, quick throw in. How many times have we seen it with this Ange Postecoglou team? As soon as the ball goes out, it's straight back in play, and Hearts are sleeping. Now, Michael Ship was really critical of them. All the pundits were, because they were sleeping defensively. But I think they'd have been tired, because, like, mentally and physically, they were defending for the majority of that first half. So they probably just lost concentration through tiredness. But I think is it Moy that works it into a wee slide wheel pass for Johnston. Great pace in the ball in, but Kyogo's just found himself free, as he always does with his movement, and a lovely wee back heel flick into the far corner. That just sums up where his confidence is at just now, doesn't it?
Yeah, and where Alistair Johnston's confidence is at, because it was a deliberate ball right in. He knew he was there. He wasn't just hitting that across goal and hope.
Yeah.
But it was an outrageous finish. I mean, I think they said there that there was 8 Hearts bodies in the box and 3 Celtic bodies in the box. And what happens? Kyogo outfoxes the lot of them. Kyogo's taken his game up a little level. I think he was at a high level, but I think he's now playing at the peak of probably the peak of his career, but I assume, I've not saw him before now, but he's at that age where he's at a peak age, certainly the peak of his Celtic career. And Postecoglou was vocal actually midweek about people not finding him, seeing his movement in the game and how clever it is and us not finding him enough. And I thought the players took heed of that today, because before that stunning goal, they were trying all sorts of routes to get to him. They were playing over the top sometimes to get to him, which you might think isn't a Postecoglou way, but it's clever, because if the centre halves know that Kyogo he's not just going to be found all the time with little intricate passes as we get near the box. He can be found from distance. They don't know how to handle him, and he's not that often caught offside, Kyogo, because the centre halves are too scared to play on, to sort of try and attempt to play him offside. So they drop deep, and it opens up loads of space. So even when Kyogo doesn't get the ball, he's creating loads of space for our midfield to run into, because the centre halves are too scared to try and handle him in any other way than drop off him. And that's eaten its way more and more into our game. But that was just a sublime finish, and he deserves it. See him at the end there, he's gone down. It means so much to him. He's been sat as a substitute for 15, 20 minutes, but he's closing his eyes and he's breathing it all in at full time, because he knows he's a key part of something special. His attitude is absolutely superb to accompany his ability. And if we get a treble and it looks like we're odds on to do that, he's going to have been the spearhead. And at that point, when you talk about Edouard and Moussa Dembele, he's going to have a strong case to say that, he's every bit as much, maybe more, than what they had contributed to the club.
Yeah, he's in great form. He's been massive this season. I think Hatate, who was brilliant in the first half, had one where he broke into the Hearts half from deep, and he tried to play Kyogo in, but Kyogo was going to make the very same movement that he made for his goal on Wednesday night, where he's sort of on the right centre of the box, but he's going to drift to the left of the defender, and Hatate kind of drills it into his feet, as if he's wanting to make it stick on the right-hand side. McGregor has one where he gets clear and tries to slide them in as well. So there was a few occasions today that were sort of near misses in terms of getting Kyogo in on goal, but he still managed to find a way to get on the score sheet with that brilliant finish, brilliant invention, brilliant intuition, and technique to finish it. The second half, obviously it's a different prospect. 2-0 up, Hearts changed their shape a wee bit. I think they go forward at the back and try and have a bit more attacking impetus in the game and try and get back into it. And there's a wee bit of defending for us to do, I think. You touched on Hearts saving the first half. That comes from a set piece. I think most of the defending we had to do today came from sort of scrimmashes after set pieces or second balls. There wasn't much from open play for Hearts, but when we had to defend, we did that. And Kobayashi comes on for Starfelt. We'll need to see if Starfelt's going to be out long term. Obviously coming off at half time, but again, Kobayashi, and I think that's where you're looking for Cameron Carter-Vickers to just be a steadying influence on him, because Kobayashi hasn't played a lot of games for Celtic. That's a tough venue, even though you're 2-0 up. And I thought he did well, but I thought Carter-Vickers all afternoon was just rock solid. Again, there's no surprises there. It's week in and week out, but the amount of times today the Hearts player on his back, held them off, even stepped out and dribbled past them, connecting passes into the midfield. He wins the free kick late in the game. O'Reilly swings it in and he gets his goal. He's just absolutely colossal for this Celtic team, Cameron Carter-Vickers, isn't he?
I mean, colossal's the right word. He just, sort of run out of superlatives for him. When we saw Kobayashi in the tunnel coming on at the second half, nothing against Starfelt, but I was praying it wasn't CCV one injury, because he's so important to how we play. And despite the fact that he get booked early on, it didn't unnerve him in that second half. It's almost like the game's a bit too easy for him up here, and who knows? I'd imagine that won't go unnoticed by people in the top 5 leagues in Europe. There may well become a time in the not too distant future where we're throwing a lot of money on the table for Cameron, and he might move on. But that's fine, because he gives his all for the badge. He really does, I believe, care about Celtic. I think he's really happy here. But just his speed, the way he can play the ball on his feet, how dominant he is in the air. I mean, he's outrageously dominant with his duels. He rarely, if at all, loses a duel over the course of any game. And you're right, Kobayashi would have benefited from that. I think he was a little bit shaky, Kobayashi, against Ginnelly in the first sort of 5-10 minutes there. Yeah. There was 2 or 3 times where he looked a little bit physically uncomfortable. Now, it's not the easiest. I'm sure Postecoglou wouldn't have intentionally tried to throw him into that. That's not really an environment to throw in a relatively new signing from Japan at centre-back. But I think for the last half hour of the game, he looked pretty good. I mean, he was good. He's clearly good with the ball at his feet. There was a couple of good blocks, important blocks, actually, that Kobayashi put in. So I think overall, we'd probably give Kobayashi pass marks. But it would be a bit of a concern we've got if Starfelt's out. Starfelt and CCV are just imperious back there. I mean, they're such a foil for one another. I mean, it would be a drop down if we had to rely on either Welsh or potentially Kobayashi. Not that he's not at the level, but he's just not been here long enough. He's not getting the experience in the game to give us what Starfelt will, I'd imagine, for the last part of the season. So I really hope Carroll's okay. It sounds like Maeda is maybe going to be back for Hibs. So yeah, that's about the only injury concern we've got. But it would be a key one. I wouldn't like to see Starfelt out.
No, he is important for us, and as you say, that combination between those two is the foundation, I think, of everything this Celtic team has achieved. That I think defensively they've been so strong for us. The form continues. Another 3 goals today. I think it's 21 games unbeaten. I mean, we try our best to sort of stay away from hyperbole on this channel, but honestly, the performances are remarkable, and I think that today, as I said at the top, it just underlined the strength to come out like that in a game like that, where there's pressure on you, because Hearts at Tynecastle, as I say, probably the toughest job we could have been given the teams that are left in the competition. But I thought the way we approached it, the confidence and belief we showed in the way that this team plays football, and we were just never in any danger. I mean, I think the levels of performance, and yes, I know we need to caveat it by the quality of the opposition at times, and yes, we want this Celtic team to make impacts in Europe, to really sort of write its chapter in Celtic's history. But this level of performance domestically this season is so impressive.
I mean, if they get 107 points, I think that's the all-time record. It feels to me like they deserve that, just with the intensity of what they're doing, that how their work ethic, the quality that they're producing, the resilience. I mean, it doesn't matter if we go behind. Nothing matters. It doesn't matter what goes on in that park. We come away with a victory. And it would be fitting, I think, if we got to 107 points. You make a good point about Europe. That's the one outlier, isn't it? A bit inconsistent in Ange's first season. Second season, it's a tough school, right? Playing Real Madrid, and but we probably felt that despite the performances, we let ourselves down a bit with our points total there. So in Europe, it does make a big difference, in terms of your legacy. But that's for another day. We're concentrating on domestic football. I've watched Celtic my whole life. Have I saw anyone better than this domestically? Brendan Rodgers' team in their pomp, Martin O'Neill's team with Henrik. Look, it's not clear cut, but the very fact that we think that there's a possibility this could be, in my mind, the most resilient, it's certainly the one with the best squad. Martin O'Neill, he might have had Henrik Larsson up front, but he had Momo Silla and Steve Guppy on the bench. No one gets on our bench unless they are absolutely at it, ready to come on, proven quality, high-level players. Brendan Rodgers didn't have that level of depth on the bench. It is without doubt the strongest squad Celtic have had in my supporting lifetime. And I think it would be fitting if they went on and got that record because they are just relentless. Their mindset is incredible. And I'm just loving every minute of watching them. With every passing game, you get more and more confident that it doesn't matter if you're a bag of nerves, if the opposition score first. You know you're going to come through it. So it's an exciting time. And we're not that far away now from the silverware end of the season. And they deserve the 3 trophies. I just hope something freakish doesn't happen, that prevents that because they deserve it. It's a special time to support the club.
Aye, absolutely. It's a joy. It's a joy to watch them. It really is. There's so many players. I don't know if I remember a Celtic team in my lifetime watching the club with so many players that give you so much joy for watching them. Like the technical level is so high. Normally, you think teams gone by, you'd have 1 or 2 really technically excellent players. Like if you think about Gordon Strachan's team, maybe 1 or 2. Nakamura was the technical excellence in that side, but there's just so many players in this team that are an absolute joy to watch. Hatate, Jota, even Haksabanovic, who got his start today, maybe didn't have the same impact as he had off the bench on Wednesday, but again, technical ability, excellent. Kyogo, who we've waxed lyrical about, there's just so much technical quality in it, and it is an absolute joy to watch. Ange Postecoglou has been getting asked about treble questions since before the League Cup final, and obviously him and the players bat them away because it's not something that they want to talk about before the fact, but we can talk about it. We're in the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup, great position in the league. As you say, you feel like this team has it in them. Do you think we can go on and do it?
I mean, I think, look, the league, you'd be crazy to suggest the league's a serious concern. Of course it's not, but I think Hibs is an important game. Despite all this, Rangers are an inferior team, that's clear, but they have been their goals per game could get them up to 95 points or something, right? So the reality is, a freak defeat for us and we're back in the title race. So Hibs is important. The league is not done. And I think it's important because we then go into an international break. So if we go in 9 points clear with 9 to go, we're just chipping away at the inevitable. But the league still needs to taking a bit of care. I think we're going to win the Scottish Cup. Of course I do. It would be irrational to say that Celtic aren't heavy favourites for the Scottish Cup. But again, despite being pretty comfortable against Rangers in the last game, there was only a goal in it, right? So you never know. But the depth that we've got in terms of our squad, the ability that we have to peak at the right time, I've got probably as confident as you could be about winning a treble. You're only a red card away or a dodgy VAR decision from, there's a lot of variables there to say that, yeah, we're going to win the treble for sure. But I'm as confident as I could be at this point in time.
Yeah, let's hope so. Be interesting to see how the semi-final draw goes. Kenny, a few different shouts for man of the match in the comments. A lot for Jota. A lot of comments from Australia for Aaron Moy and begging us to talk more about Aaron Moy's performance. He was excellent today. Who is it for you?
It's tough, isn't it? Because I think Moy's performance in the first half hour didn't kill the game, but it killed their spirit. But so he was probably the most impactful in that respect, but do you give it on, he did sort of fade away a bit, whereas Jota over the course of the 90 minutes was always a real threat. And it was nice to see him return to form. I'd give it to Jota, but I'd actually also give a mention to Alistair Johnson. Mm-hmm. He's an upgrade in Juranovic. Now I think I feel confident in that. I mean, is he any worse defensively? No, I think he's better. He's got more steel. He's got more height. He's so solid in the tackle. Is he any worse offensively? He's got another assist today. No, he's not. Juranovic was nice offensively, but his output in wide areas, I think, is a bit better. He can put the ball in low. He can whip nice balls in. And his overall, the way he embraces the club, and he's clearly his infectious influence off the park. Juranovic never had that. Overall, I think he's an improvement. And today he was excellent. He just gives you that structure from both fullback areas, but particularly him today. I thought he really strolled it. I would give it to Jota, but I think Johnson and Moy were not too far away.
Yeah, see on Johnson, I keep saying this, I love the intensity in his game, but it's another player that Ange has brought to the club, and he always talks about the importance of personality and character. in terms of getting the spirit right and the culture, how these players are as people. But I think he's another one with a tremendous attitude. That's another thing that really stands out with this team. Aside for the ability, is the relentless attitude, and I think Alistair Johnston fits into that absolutely perfectly. I think I would give it to Jota as well if I was pushed. I think Moy was brilliant. Carter Vickers was excellent as well. But it's just Jota for me today. There you go, folks. That is it for full-time reaction. Like this video, comment with your own thoughts on the game below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we will see you during the week for the build-up to that home game against Hibs next Saturday. Cheers.